Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Stuphamism. It's been about a month now since my last video, and I apologize to you guys that watch my channel. It's just I've had several different things going on, between a hard drive issue to getting frustrated just with PvP in general in this game, partly due to the fact that even with a rough start, the first 3 games of my qualifying rounds, if you go back and watch my last video, I had AFKs, so I started off at tier 3 silver, but within the first 25 matches, that's including the 10 qualifying, I got to tier 3 gold with a very squishy build and not too much effort. And then I spent a good portion of my time after that just climbing up and down the tier 3 gold ladder, almost as if it felt to the point where it was rigged. And so I started kind of putting effort into World vs. World, and I'm just dabbling in there. I've not done much of that before, and also working on trying to get my legendary, which, as we all know, takes an eternity. But I have some good friends that went ahead and coached me into finishing this up. Go ahead, get to platinum, and let's make this video and move on to the next afterwards. So let's jump into that, and we'll talk a little bit about the build that I chose. So last time I was doing a staffing greatsword, and I had condition damage, like a mixture hybrid build. This time I'm going more for a strictly power build, but with a decent amount of sustain. And I chose the weapons fittingly, axe, warhorn, and greatsword, and I'm using mostly wells in this build. And there's a reason why. We'll get into that in a minute, but I first just want to touch on the fact that I did mostly, almost solely, play Reaper necro, very little scourge. And I think there's a common thought process that no matter what Reaper build that you're playing, or what necro build you're playing in general, that your job is to sit at mid. And to a degree, this build, much like other Reaper builds, has a lot of team play capabilities, and it is definitely good in most mid fights. It brings a lot to the game, but I've made this build as a very high sustain build with a lot of mobility, and you'll see why here in a minute, so that I can go far, or that I can take the place of going home briefly. And that's something that throws a lot of people off. As a matter of fact, I got probably chewed out more because of that than anything else, whether we won the match or not. So I want to go over this build a little bit in detail as to why I'm doing this, and as to some of the people that are not as familiar with Reaper, as to why this can work in more scenarios than just mid. Not that it doesn't, but we'll just jump right into it. I'm going to jump into the runes and the amulet. I went with a very tanky paladin amulet, so this is about as tanky as it gets. Runic chronomancer, and this is power, precision, and applies 2 seconds of quickness whenever you cast a well. That's I've got 3 well skills, and then whenever I'm reviving someone, I also have a well, so that's quite a bit of quickness generated just from that. My sigils here, I've got Sigil of Agility whenever I switch to the greatsword, and that just kind of helps me to throw out some of my skills real fast. Usually just in general, I need to be quick on everything I'm doing. And also the quickness, I want to use that before I ever try to heal myself too, because most likely, with a 1 1.25 second heal, most likely I'm going to get stunned or something as I'm trying to do this, unless I have some quickness going on. So the quickness works really, really well with this build. Sigil of Annulment just kind of aids in removing boons. So that's another part of this build that you'll see in some of the traits and stuff like that. Now, this is a very familiar build for those of you that have looked into meta battle and have seen the vampire greatsword build. Very, very similar to this build, honestly. And there's just a few key changes, and that's just, this is the way that I like to play. Some other people would prefer to do it that way, and that's fine too. And also, you know, real quick, let me just mention that some of the stuff can be interchangeable. I did, you know, from time to time switch from the Paladin amulet, you know, to like a Demolisher amulet, and that was okay. I also tried a couple rounds with Berserker that did not go too well, but that's neither here nor there. So, you know, blood magic. So this is a Blood Reaper build. This is part of your sustain. When Ritual of Life, whenever you are reviving somebody, you're casting a Well of Blood. Now, due to traits, this is going to give me quickness. This is going to give me Life Siphon when I cast this well. It's going to heal me, and it's going to heal anybody in that well, as well as, you know, doing a pulse revive on the person that you're reviving. So for those of you that don't know, also, whenever I use a well, I also get protection. This is all kind of a big synergy with the wells. So, you know, sometimes this is even, you know, something that I want to do when I know I can't get the person up. I may just touch down to revive them just to get it, just to pop off a quick heal and quickness. You know, even in some situations where, you know, you're not getting this guy up, you got 2 or 3 on you, that might be the only thing that you can use to sustain for a second. So it works really well. So siphon health whenever you hit a foe, that's just one of the passive traits. Vampiric Presence, you know, I use this, and if there is another necro in the mix, you know, particularly like a scourge, and we're going to be in the same area the whole time, I may switch to Life from Death, and, you know, that works better for a Reaper than it does, you know, for a Scourge anyhow, because of Shroud, the way it works. But if I've got Vampiric Presence coming from another necro, then why not switch to Life from Death? And that way, whenever I exit Shroud, I'm healing and reviving allies in that area and myself. So Vampiric Rituals. Wells gain reduced recharge time, which is important because wells have a long recharge time. You know, they also now grant protection and siphon, so now you can see how that synergy is working. So all that, where I chose to be a little different, that's the Vampirism build on Meta Battle. It's using, I believe, the Spite Tree, which is, you know, focusing on might and boon corruptions, that sort of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually been a trait tree or a specialization tree that I've used in a lot of other builds, but for this I chose Soul Reaping for a couple of reasons. One, Speed of Shadows. I can use the F1 skill, you know, periodically just for swiftness. So, you know, that's that, and my Warhorn, that's a constant speed boost. That gives me that mobility that I was talking about, being able to get to points, not be just a slow necro, as well as using Death Charge just for mobility in certain situations if I don't need it right away. Vital Persistence, which gives me a little bit of vitality, but I'm mainly using this because it gives my Shroud skills reduced recharge, 20% reduced recharge, which I think is a pretty big deal, especially since that's my main source of damage. It also, with Soul Reaping, gives me a couple of other, like you know, for instance, Spectral Armor, whenever I take damage below 50% health. So that helps with my sustain. My maximum life force is increased, and I deal more damage when above my life force threshold. And no matter what, you know, when you're a Reaper, you want to kind of keep your Death Shroud up as high as you can before you use it to maximize it. Especially against somebody that's going to block a lot of your attacks or something like that. You don't want to have, you know, half your Shroud. So, you know, you want to save it as much as you can, you know, but it's also your survivability. So if you're about to die, that you don't have a choice but to pop off the Death Shroud. But, you know, it does help in those situations where with the stars align. And then lastly, Death Perception, which works out really good. It pretty much maximizes my critical strike here. You know, I mean, a little over and above at 109%, but that's partly due to the fact that I'm using a rune with precision on it. However, the traits that the quickness traits that I get when I cast a well make it still worthwhile. Otherwise, I would probably choose a different rune, so I didn't waste 9% critical strike when I go into Shroud, but that's okay. And then Reaper, Chilling Nova. I mean, that's kind of a given, you know. Chill is one of the best things that I've found about Reaper. You know, it's reducing the recharge rate of other people's skills and their movement speed. It's a great control aspect, especially if you can keep it on them. And what this does is whenever you critical strike against a chilled foe, which is going to happen quite a bit, there's a lot of chill effects in this build, then it can cause an explosion. This is every 8 seconds. It's the cooldown that will chill adjacent foes. So that's within a very close radius, but that happens more than you think, especially in mid or group fights. Whenever you flick fear, you flick chill. You know, this is all a big synergy with chill when you go Reaper. That's just a given. So I went with the Soul Eater. You know, I could have went with Chilling Victory, and that would increase my boons, which kind of works a little bit better with Blighter Spoon. And Might Never Hurts, but this 208 healing every second that I have Greatsword, and I've found that as I've played more with Greatsword and gotten more used to it, I almost solely use it when in close combat anyway, which is usually when I'm having to worry the most about my health. It's a lot of healing. So you know, for me this worked out a lot better than this. I tried both, so you know, this would have worked. Chilling Victory would have definitely worked better if I'd have went with the Spike Tree. And then that being said, Blighter Spoon has less effectiveness than if I was getting more might. I do get might every 2 seconds just during attacks, and then plus I also, when I'm not in Reaper form, I'm gaining constant protection and quickness. So I am putting boons on myself that are boosting my Death Shroud, or obviously healing me when I'm in Death Shroud. But sometimes, looking at the match, if I think I can get away with going Reaper's Onslaught, I'll choose that instead, just because it's more ferocity, and like we've already noticed, I've got plenty of precision, especially in Shroud form, and then increase in attack speed. So these are kind of interchangeable. I usually use this. It's just that extra little bit of sustain. With this build being so tanky and so sustainable, you can get into a situation with this character, you're mobile enough, you can go far. I know that's like, some kind of taboo to mention, but I've done it several times. It works fairly well. This is a build that actually works decently at dueling or 1 versus 1, where a lot of necro builds, Reaper builds are specific to 2 versus 2 or 2 versus 3, and other kind of team fights. This one does okay 1 versus 1 in a lot of situations. I've managed in some situations, depending on the obstacles in the area, to even go against spell breakers and do okay in situations like that, or even 1 versus 2 because of the sustain. It's just all about positioning with Reaper. A lot of people feel like this is a slow character, and as you can see, it is a bunch of slow attacks, a lot of long cooldowns, and you'll see in some of the clips ahead a little bit of the play style here. But one of the things that people don't know is that this 5 skill, you don't have to wait for this skill to go all the way through before you can hit another skill. If you hit 5 about a quarter of the way through, you can go ahead and hit another skill. It will finish through with the pool, and it will allow you to go ahead and start swinging the slow swing. It ends up putting the person right in front of you as your swing finishes. It's something to play with and try, but you definitely want to have some kind of a button program just to stow your weapon, because the way this works is you want to 5 stow and then swing as they get there. So that is one thing that you can do with a great sword to kind of help out with your speed. And then having these constant wells, it's a lot of quickness. When someone's trying to get away, you do have your ranged attack. I usually don't use this as much, and part of the reason is because Unholy Feast, even as great as it is for, you know, boon corruption, it's a slow skill. You know, Warhorn, you have to be, you know, close and aiming directly at the person, and sometimes that does work, but I've found that in a lot of situations, you know, I perform better just AoE, you know, damage, and it helps out a lot not to have to aim and position yourself. That's one of the big things about Reaper, but it is still important, and one of the things that you want to do is you want to be able to position yourself in such a way where you have an obstacle between you and the enemy, sort of like in a situation like this, where you can pop out, hit them, you know, throw some wells down. You have enough abilities, and then you have plenty of mobility to get away from an enemy or to go towards an enemy. So I've had some questions, you know, and specifically like against warriors or against deadeyes. You know, what do you do as a Reaper? Because most of the time you're kind of a sitting duck, and it's, you know, no matter how much sustain you have, that's still an issue with this class. But, you know, what I've noticed that works best, obviously, is putting obstacles in the way and using your surroundings. You know, if you don't have teammates that can kind of help you out, but using your surroundings is a big key. Staying to the outside of a fight and only going in when you have plenty of Reaper or plenty of Shroud to do your attacks, and then, you know, getting back out of the area. And I typically try to long range as I'm assessing the fight, just to build up some Shroud, and it does a decent amount of damage, you know, with the axe anyway. Just going over the wells, you know, real quickly. The Well of Power, this one, it gives you just a second of stability, gives you all the other synergy effects. When you're standing in it, you are gaining might. So this is, you know, these are boons. These are adding to your Death Shroud, or if you go right into Reaper form, they're adding to your health. So this can heal you in that situation some. But more importantly, this is one of the few things you have against some of the condition classes. As you're standing in this well, it will turn your conditions into boons. You and whoever else is standing in there, up to 5 people. So it's great for throwing out in the middle of a team fight, especially if you're on the outside. You can help your allies out by doing that. And it's a great time as well to go ahead, when you have that second of stability, to go ahead and start popping off your heal. So a lot of times this is what you want to use as you're healing, especially if you have a lot of conditions, because this will break the stun. You can put this on yourself and cast this heal, and you're back to good. Your Well of Corruption, this is converting boons into conditions. This is great to throw on almost any enemy, but especially some of your boon heavy enemies, engineers. I see it work really well against, and guardians as well. I don't have a lot of problem against those, partly due to this skill. And Well of Suffering is just adding vulnerability, but it does a significant amount of damage too. Now it's unblockable, so it'll work against warriors and guardians. If that's something you don't think that you need as much, blinds are pretty cool too. So always keep that in mind. You can switch this up with the blind. You still get a lot of the synergy effects. It has a slightly longer cooldown, but these blinds may be good just to have for sustain, or, you know, using to pop off your consume conditions. You know, lastly, Chill the Bone. This is just your elite skill. It's really good for changing the turn of certain fights. It's a great one to save, and not to mention, this is another one where you can cancel the skill by stowing your weapon, but it still goes through the animation. So a lot of times you can throw this off, throw people off, they think you've hit that skill, they've dodged out of the way, and then you can actually hit the skill. So that's another good little trick for other Reaper players. Pro tip, I guess. So anyway, that's going over the build in probably too much depth. Hopefully I haven't talked your heads off. I'm going to go ahead and show some of the clips. Now, some of these weren't winning battles or anything like that. I did my best to get fights that weren't overly balanced in my favor. Also tried to get some that weren't too cluttered with, you know, effects, just to kind of see the mobility of the build. But all in all, I had some hard drive issues. I didn't get near as many videos to cut and edit with this one as I have in some of the other ones, but it's still enough so that you guys can see the build, and we've talked thoroughly about it. But I plan on making another video to finish off the season, just to kind of see how we did. We'll try to work on climbing platinum next, and talking a little bit more about what that's like. But I can tell you that getting to platinum, it's for whatever reason, that last game or two, it's almost like, I mean, it's some of the craziest things I've seen. You win, and then all of a sudden you go into like a lose streak. I've actually, at one point in time, I think I lost 10 games in a row, and then I caught right back up pretty quick. But this happened several times, and that was part of the frustration. I think getting past platinum, you're okay, but it seems like, for whatever reason, I don't know the algorithm, I don't know how it works, but it seems like for some reason those last couple of games you're getting paired up with people you've never seen before, usually not in your favor. I had the last couple of games, I just partnered up with somebody that I knew just to go ahead and get through that hurdle. Once you get into platinum, it's almost like you started over again, climbing that tier, and things are a little bit more fairly based. But this is my experience. I'm not going to sit here and do conspiracy theories or whatever. I would like to know if anybody else has experienced that, or you could tell me that I'm just crazy or something, but that's fine too. I don't mind. But this is my experience, and we'll you'll finish up as the season ends, and we'll kind of see what happened from there. But enjoy the clips. Thank you guys for watching. Sorry for talking so much. Sorry for taking so long to make this next video. I've got a couple other things in the works hopefully you guys will like. And thank you to my buddies out here in the Guild Wars 2 world that have helped me out and supported me. It's great to have fans that I play with, and it's great to have new friends. Thanks.